So, I'm not a huge fan of remasters. I feel like most of the time they're just cheap cash-ins to take the player's money with little effort on making the remaster better. Oh look, graphics that have only minor differences or a slightly higher frame rate. Let's charge full price. Nah, I'm fine with the original games. Remakes are sometimes a bit better, but still, I usually prefer the original games. The only game that I can think of that might be an exception to this is the Resident Evil 2 remake, but even so, I'm on the fence on whether the original or the remake is the better game. But the reason why I bring up my thoughts on remasters is because this week, I'm reviewing Alan Wake, the original. I had planned on doing it this year anyway, but with the remaster recently being released, I feel it's even more appropriate. I got this game for free when I purchased Quantum Break, another Remedy game. I was actually kind of surprised that the included download key actually worked. On to the game. Alan Wake is another game by Remedy, most famous for the first two Max Payne games and most recently Control, which in itself is one of the best games I've played in a long time. Alan Wake, at its core, kind of feels like what a mixture of Max Payne and a Stephen King book would feel like. It's dark, it's atmospheric, and it's story heavy. It's fun. You play as Alan Wake, an author with one of the longest writer cramps ever known. So much so that he decides to take a vacation with his wife Alice in Bright Falls. But before this, the game starts out with Alan having a nightmare, where he hits a hiker with his car, and then is chased by a ghostly version of him. This nightmare functions as the tutorial of the game, in which you'll find that it's your typical third-person shooter, complete with lots of humans to mow down with your pistol, and some other weapons, which I'll discuss in a bit. I'd like to get detailed on the story, but seriously, I can't, because it's a big draw of the game. As I said, it feels like you are playing a King novel, which is freaking awesome. The game isn't quite as twisted as one of his books, which I've read plenty, and side note, Cell would be an awesome world to have a video game survival RPG or something based on it, but I digress. I'll go over the start of the story, but from there, it's up to you to play the game to figure out what's going on. Again, Alan and his wife Alice go on vacation to Bright Falls and end up staying at a cabin at the middle of an island in a lake. Alan has to get the lights on because Alice is afraid of the dark. Once he does so, he finds that his wife got him a typewriter to try to influence his writing, to which he gets upset, flips out like a little child, and decides to take a walk. As he does so, the power goes out again, and Alice starts screaming for help. She falls into the lake, and Alan jumps in after her. He wakes up in a car wreck, and from here has to figure out what the hell is going on in Bright Falls, and why the local population seems to want him dead. Also, why is he finding pages of a manuscript that he can't remember writing, and why is everything on these pages happening in real life? Without getting into too many details, and I have to talk about it since they are your enemies, the humans trying to fight you are known as the Taken. They are possessed souls that want Alan dead, simply because they want that mysterious manuscript. Well, there are other reasons too, but I won't get into those in this review. The Taken never have guns, but instead use mostly melee weapons, although some will throw things like picks at you. You might think that this would make things easy, but not entirely. Combat is a bit unique in Alan Wake. For one, there's not a huge variety of weapons. Alan normally has a 6-shot revolver that you'll probably use as your main weapon. There are also 2 shotguns and a hunting rifle, along with a flare gun, flashbangs, and flares to utilize. But that's about it. You carry all of the above except you can only carry either a shotgun or the rifle, not both at the same time. But it's never a problem. You may also notice that there's no crosshair. Alan does a pretty good job at auto-aiming towards the nearest threat in the center of the screen, so as long as you're close with your aiming, he should be able to hit the enemy. But you might also notice the flashlight. This is single-handedly the most important weapon in your inventory. That's right, it's a weapon. See, the Taken are not fans of light, and the beam from the flashlight will suck away the darkness that engulfs the enemy. When putting the beam on the enemy, you'll see a circle slowly shrink on them, indicating how much darkness is still around the enemy. Once the evil is sucked out, you'll be able to permanently dispatch the enemy by shooting at them. Trying to fire bullets at the Taken without using the flashlight to whittle down the black evil will render the projectiles useless. If you simply aim the flashlight at the Taken, it'll still wear them down, but if you hold the left trigger, it'll concentrate the beam somehow, intensifying it to render the Taken vulnerable much faster. Doing this will drain the batteries in the device though, designated by the silhouette of the flashlight at the top left of the screen. The light's power will regenerate on its own, or you can pop some batteries in it at insane speeds to help speed up the process. Although batteries are plentiful in the game, I really haven't had much use for them, other than maybe some of the more frantic moments of the game, such as the mini-boss-like battles. Besides, if things really start getting bad, if you have a flashbang or flare, pop one of those to get some breathing room, or a flare gun if things are really going crazy. Flashbangs are probably the best area weapon, as it flat out destroys the enemies instead of just removing the possession-like attributes. Your health, similarly, will regenerate slowly, but unlike the Taken, if you can find a source of light, it will speed up the process. Think of areas like an extremely bright street light as a checkpoint of sorts. Or if anything, know that if you're walking towards the light, you're probably headed the right way. The overall presentation of the game is just flat out fantastic. There is a heavy TV miniseries vibe, as the game is presented in episodes, complete with previously on segments, self-narration, lots of conversations with other characters, and even Remedy's great show-within-a-show segments, this time with Night Springs, a take on the Twilight Zone. Sam Lake, the writer of the game, did an amazing job at keeping you wanting to keep going to see what will happen next, and even has a cameo in the later part of the game where he does the famous Max Payne look. Can't have a Remedy game without a Max Payne reference, right? Speaking of Max Payne, as I was playing the game, I can't help but feel that Alan Wake was using a modified or probably upgraded version of the Max Payne 2 engine. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I just couldn't help but feel that this is the engine Remedy may have thought about doing a future Max Payne with, that's all. And seriously, where's Max Payne 4? I know Rockstar probably owns the license, but Remedy needs to do the sequel. Am I wrong on this? Anywho, back to Alan Wake and its presentation. The game keeps a foreboding mood throughout, with its primarily nighttime levels complete with Silent Hill levels of fog, threatening Taken that spout out nonsense that occasionally made me laugh at its silliness, and the frequent use of slow motion and shifted camera focus to highlight the Taken coming out of the bushes to get you. You might think that these areas get old, but they really don't. They just belong and feel right for the story that's given to you. Not once I get sick of the sights or the feeling of boredom while playing. I'm really praising the games, as it deserves, but there are a few nitpicks that I want to mention. For one, some of the voice acting feels like it's overdramatic. Again, I can't show a lot without spoiling the story, but it's there and something I've noticed. Secondly, the sprint mechanic can feel delayed at times. The way it works is that pressing the left shoulder button will initiate an evade, and then if you hold it down, Alan begins sprinting. He can't sprint for long though, and will need to take a breather in between jogs. Also, if you evade, you have to wait a few seconds before being able to do so again. If you're surrounded by Taken, and you can't dodge, it's easy to be stun locked and then killed. Checkpoints typically aren't far between, so at least you won't lose too much progress over these cheap deaths. And you're probably going to think I'm crazy with this, but the shoulder that you aim from constantly switches to its default. It drives me crazy. I like being able to aim over the right shoulder, or with Alan primarily on the left side of the screen. So the fact that the game keeps throwing Alan on the right side of the screen annoyed the hell out of me. Why not save my preferences? I know most other games remember which side you like, so I don't know why Alan Wake doesn't. I know, it's a very minor personal gripe, but it's my opinion, damn it. A lot of people seem to complain about the branding in the game, but it didn't bother me any. If anything, it helps lead into a more natural world. Well, as natural as it can be with supernatural elements. Every pack of batteries you find are energizers, so I can't help but wonder if they had some sort of sponsorship deal. I can't think of any other branding offhand though, but it may have been patched out for all I know. The only other quote-unquote brand are a few songs from Poets of the Fall, a band I first heard of when playing Control. So after all this time, is the original Alan Wake any good? Damn right it is. The atmosphere, the story, the gameplay, it all meshes perfectly for a seriously enjoyable gaming experience. The flaws I found are so minor that they almost weren't even worth mentioning, other than the evasion and sprint oddity. If you have an Xbox 360 or PC, you can get the original, as it wasn't available on Sony platforms. Both the remastered game, which I've read is pretty dang good, it might be the better option. But personally, I'm fine with the original, as it's just an amazing game from start to finish. If you're a fan of horror-themed action games or reading Stephen King/Dean Koontz books, this is definitely a game that would be up your alley. Final score? 7 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.